The sharp screech of alarms jolted Captain Liam Harker awake. His eyes flew open, greeted by a chaos of flashing red lights, hissing steam, and the overwhelming scent of burning wires. His hands immediately flew to the controls, but it was too late. The ship's trajectory had already shifted, hurling them toward an uncharted planet at breakneck speed. "Computer, status report," Liam barked, frantically working to stabilize the ship. "Warning, critical systems failure, atmospheric entry imminent. Brace for impact," the mechanical voice of the ship's AI replied, its cold tone doing nothing to calm the captain's rising panic. Liam gritted his teeth, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the control stick. He was supposed to be on a simple reconnaissance mission, scouting the far reaches of space. Now, it seemed he would be the first human to crash land on this unknown planet. His pulse raced as he glanced out the window. Purple skies and lush green terrain rushed up to meet him at an alarming speed. With a deafening crash, the ship hit the ground. The force of the impact threw Liam forward. And then, everything went black. Liam groaned, his body aching as he regained consciousness. The first thing that registered was the strange, sweet scent filling the air. It wasn't anything like Earth's familiar smells. It was more exotic, almost intoxicating. His eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the bright sunlight filtering through a dense canopy of towering trees. As his vision cleared, he froze. He wasn't alone. A group of tall, striking figures stood in a circle around him. Women, dozens of them. Each one was as tall as Liam, their skin an iridescent blue, adorned with swirling white patterns that accentuated their graceful, muscular forms. Their eyes, all shades of green and gold, were locked onto him with curiosity, their expressions a mix of fascination and wariness. Liam's hand instinctively went to his side, but his gun was gone. So was his communication device. All he had was the shredded remains of his flight suit and his wits. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. He slowly raised his hands, palms open in a universal gesture of peace. The leader of the group, a woman with piercing emerald eyes and intricate designs running down her arms, stepped forward. She studied him for a moment, then spoke in a soft, melodic language that Liam couldn't understand. He shook his head, hoping she'd understand that he couldn't comprehend her words. "I don't mean any harm," Liam said slowly, enunciating each word. "I'm just lost." The woman tilted her head, confusion flickering across her sharp features. She gestured to the others, who began to move closer. Liam's pulse quickened. Their movements were graceful but deliberate, like predators assessing their prey. One of the women reached out, her slender fingers lightly brushing against the fabric of his flight suit. Liam stiffened, but didn't move. He had no idea what they wanted from him, and provoking them wasn't an option. The woman's touch was gentle but inquisitive, as if she'd never seen clothing like his before. Her golden eyes widened as she tugged at the material. She said something to the leader, who responded with a curt nod. Before Liam could react, several of the women moved in, their hands tugging at his clothes with increasing urgency. "Whoa, whoa, hold on," Liam exclaimed, stepping back. "What are you doing?" But they didn't stop. Their fascination with his clothing, and by extension, his body, seemed to intensify by the second. Within moments, they had ripped his flight suit open, leaving him standing in nothing but his undershirt and shorts. Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He was completely out of his depth, surrounded by alien women who were acting as if they'd never seen a man before. He had no idea what their intentions were, but he knew one thing: he had to stay calm. The leader stepped forward again, her eyes narrowing as they raked over his form. She placed a hand on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her fingers. Liam swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "This is not good," he muttered under his breath. The leader removed her hand and spoke a single word, her voice filled with awe and intrigue. Liam didn't understand what she said, but he could tell Whatever she had just discovered about him was significant. The rest of the women exchanged excited glances, their whispers filling the air. Liam stood frozen, waiting for whatever came next. Liam's heart raced as the alien leader stepped back, her gaze unwavering. The others continued to whisper among themselves, their voices rising with excitement. Liam couldn't help but feel like a specimen on display, completely out of his element. He had encountered alien species before, but none like this. Suddenly, the leader snapped her fingers, and the group fell silent. She pointed to Liam's undershirt, a strange look in her eyes. Without hesitation, one of the other women stepped forward, her hands once again reaching for his clothes. Wait, what now?" Liam stammered, but his protests were ignored. In one swift motion, the woman tore his shirt down the middle, exposing his chest. The air was cooler against his skin, but that wasn't what made him shiver. He could feel their eyes on him, studying every inch of his body with intense interest. It was as if they'd never seen a human, or perhaps even a male, before. The leader placed a hand on Liam's chest again, but this time, her touch was more deliberate. She pressed her palm flat against his skin, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat. Liam flinched but stayed still, his mind racing to figure out what they wanted. The leader said something to the group, her voice soft but commanding. Two more women stepped forward, each of them examining Liam's arms and legs, as if they were trying to understand how he was built. Their touch was firm yet gentle, more curious than aggressive. Liam clenched his jaw, forcing himself to remain calm. He didn't want to appear hostile, but he also didn't want them to think they could do whatever they pleased. "Listen," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't know what you're looking for, but this isn't necessary. I'm just a pilot, okay? No need to." His words trailed off as the leader tilted her head, clearly not understanding him. She reached for a device attached to her belt, a small, metallic orb that pulsed with a faint light. Holding it in front of him, she pressed a button, and the orb emitted a soft hum. Liam's eyes widened as he felt a tingling sensation spread across his body. He didn't know what the device was doing, but he instinctively backed away. The leader raised a hand, signaling for him to stay still. "Great," Liam muttered under his breath. "Now I'm being scanned like some lab rat." The hum grew louder, and the orb's light intensified, casting a soft glow over him. After a moment, the device beeped, and the leader's eyes lit up with what looked like recognition. She turned to the others, speaking rapidly, her tone more urgent than before. Liam frowned. "What did you just find?" The leader pocketed the orb and approached Liam with a new sense of purpose. She leaned in, her face mere inches from his. For the first time since the encounter began, Liam noticed a flicker of something in her eyes, something that wasn't curiosity, but understanding. She reached out and took his hand, pressing it to her chest. Her heartbeat was steady, but there was something deeper in the way she held his hand. It felt like a connection, an attempt to communicate without words. Liam hesitated, unsure of what to make of the gesture. Was she trying to establish trust? Or was this some kind of ritual? Whatever it was, it felt significant. Then, she spoke a single word. This time, Liam understood. Male. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. They had never seen a male before. These alien women had no frame of reference for what he was. They had never encountered a male of their species, let alone a human one. That's why they were so fascinated by him. The leader stepped back, her expression softening. She gestured to the others, and they immediately moved away from Liam, giving him space. The tension in the air lessened, though the curiosity remained. "Okay," Liam said, exhaling a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "At least now I understand why you're acting like this." The leader nodded, though she still didn't understand his words. She motioned for him to follow, and the group began to move through the dense forest, their steps silent and graceful. Liam hesitated for a moment, then decided it was safer to comply. As they walked, Liam's mind raced with questions. Who were these women? Why were there no males among them? And most importantly, what did they want with him now that they knew what he was? One thing was certain. This planet held far more mysteries than he had anticipated, and he had a feeling he was about to discover just how deep those mysteries went. The journey through the alien forest was eerily quiet. The towering trees stretched high above, their massive branches creating a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled shadows. Liam kept close behind the leader, whose name he still didn't know. The other women moved silently, their eyes occasionally glancing back at him, their expressions unreadable. He couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play here. His mind raced with questions, but there was no way to communicate with them. Not yet, at least. As they moved deeper into the forest, the leader finally stopped at the edge of a wide clearing. In the center stood a massive stone structure, ancient and weathered, covered in strange, glowing symbols. It looked like some sort of temple, or perhaps a monument. The leader turned to Liam, gesturing toward the structure. She spoke softly, her tone serious, as if she was trying to explain something important. But of course he couldn't understand her. "What is this place?" Liam asked, more to himself than to her. The leader stepped closer to the structure, pressing her hand against one of the glowing symbols. The symbol pulsed brighter for a moment, and then a low rumble echoed through the clearing. The ground beneath Liam's feet vibrated as the stone doors of the structure slowly slid open, revealing a dark interior. The leader motioned for Liam to follow her inside. Liam hesitated. Every instinct in his body screamed at him not to go inside that dark, ancient place. But what choice did he have? He had no idea where he was, no way to contact his crew, and no idea how to fix his ship. If these women had the answers, he had to take the risk. He followed the leader inside. The interior of the structure was dimly lit, with the same glowing symbols scattered across the walls. The air was cooler, almost cold, and it carried a faint, metallic scent. Liam could feel the weight of the stone walls pressing in around him, making him feel small and vulnerable. As they moved deeper into the structure, the leader stopped in front of a large circular chamber. In the center of the chamber was a massive glowing crystal, hovering in midair. The crystal hummed with energy, casting an eerie light across the room. The leader turned to Liam, her expression serious. She pointed to the crystal, then to him, and finally to the sky. Liam frowned, trying to piece together what she was trying to say. The crystal was important. That much was clear. But what did it have to do with him? And why was she pointing to the sky? Is this power? Liam asked, his eyes narrowing as he studied the crystal. Does this control something? The leader nodded, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made his heart skip a beat. She stepped forward, reaching out her hand toward the crystal, but then stopped. She pointed to Liam again, her meaning clear. She wanted him to touch it. Liam's stomach churned with unease. He had no idea what this thing was or what would happen if he touched it. But once again, what choice did he have? Taking a deep breath, Liam slowly reached out his hand. His fingers brushed against the crystal's surface, and the moment he made contact, a surge of energy shot through his body. It wasn't painful, but it was intense, like a jolt of electricity that coursed through his veins and into his mind. His vision blurred, and for a split second, he felt like he was floating, disconnected from his body. Images flashed before his eyes, scenes of planets, stars, and distant galaxies. He saw strange symbols like the ones on the walls, and then faces. Human faces. They were speaking, but he couldn't hear them. And then, just as quickly as it had started, it was over. Liam stumbled back, gasping for breath. His heart pounded in his chest, and his body felt like it was on fire. The leader watched him carefully, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and anticipation. What? What just happened? Liam breathed, his voice shaky. The leader didn't answer. She couldn't. But from the look on her face, Liam could tell that whatever had just occurred, it was only the beginning. Liam staggered back from the crystal, his mind still reeling from the images and sensations that had overwhelmed him. The leader stepped forward, her gaze fixed on him, her eyes now filled with something that bordered on reverence. She spoke again, this time slower, more deliberate, as if trying to bridge the language gap through sheer willpower. But Liam shook his head. "I don't understand," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "What was that? What did you show me?" The leader paused, clearly frustrated by the language barrier. Then, in a move that surprised Liam, she reached for the metallic orb on her belt, the same device that had scanned him earlier. She pressed a few buttons, and the orb began to glow once more. This time, however, it projected a holographic image into the air. Liam watched in awe as a series of images flashed before him. Images of planets, space travel, and humans. The hologram showed humans in spacecraft, engaging in battles, exploring distant worlds, and even communicating with alien species. Liam's eyes widened. "Humans, you've seen us before." The leader nodded, her expression serious. She pointed to the holographic image of a human spaceship, and then to the crystal. It was then that the pieces began to fall into place. "This crystal," Liam said slowly, his voice filled with realization. It's connected to us, isn't it? It's some kind of communication device, power source. What are you trying to tell me?" The leader pressed another button on the orb, and the hologram shifted again, this time showing an image of the planet they were on. The sky was filled with spaceships, human spaceships, descending toward the surface. Liam's heart skipped a beat. "Are you saying humans have been here before? Or are they coming?" The leader met his gaze, her expression somber. She spoke one final word, her voice filled with gravity. "War." Liam's blood ran cold. The meaning was clear now. The humans she had shown him weren't explorers. They were invaders. And now, after all this time, they were coming back. Liam stood frozen, his heart pounding as the leader's single word echoed in his mind. War. It was a chilling revelation. Humans had been to this planet before, and now they were coming back, but not as peaceful explorers. They were coming as conquerors. The leader motioned for Liam to follow her deeper into the ancient structure. Reluctantly, he complied, still trying to process the magnitude of what he had just learned. His mind raced with questions. What had the humans done when they were here before? Why were they coming back? And most importantly, what role did this crystal play in the conflict? As they descended into the lower chambers of the temple, the air grew cooler, and the glow of the mysterious symbols on the walls intensified. Liam could sense the tension in the leader's movements. Something big was about to happen. They finally stopped in a vast chamber, its ceiling so high that it disappeared into darkness. In the center of the room, a massive stone table was surrounded by figures, all similar to the women who had found him earlier, but older, more weathered. They were the leaders, the decision-makers of this alien society. Their eyes locked onto Liam the moment he entered, their expressions unreadable. The leader who had guided Liam stepped forward and began speaking in their melodic, unfamiliar language. The elders listened intently, occasionally glancing at Liam as she explained what had transpired. Liam stood awkwardly, not understanding a single word, but he knew one thing. His presence here had changed everything. When the leader finished speaking, one of the elders stepped forward, his blue skin etched with intricate, glowing patterns that seemed to pulse with an ancient power. He spoke slowly and deliberately, his voice deep and commanding, as if addressing both Liam and the others. At first, Liam was lost in the strange cadence of the elder's words, but then, to his astonishment, the metallic orb on the leader's belt activated once again, translating the elder's speech into broken but understandable English. Human. The elder began, his eyes narrowing as he studied Liam. You are different, not like those who came before. Liam swallowed, nodding slightly. I don't know what happened before, but I'm not here to fight. Just crash-landed here. Need help to fix my ship and leave. The elder's eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement, but it quickly faded. Your people, they destroyed, they took. We fought, we survived. Liam's heart sank. It was worse than he'd imagined. The humans who had come before hadn't just explored this planet. They had plundered it, sparking a war with its inhabitants. I didn't know, Liam said quietly, his voice heavy with guilt. That's not why I'm here. The elder tilted his head, considering his words. Your people, they come again. War is in the air. You are here. The implication hung in the air, whether by fate or coincidence. Liam's arrival on this planet had occurred just as the humans were preparing to return, and the aliens saw him as a potential key to understanding their enemies. But how? And why now? Before Liam could respond, the ground beneath them began to shake, a low rumble that sent dust and debris falling from the ceiling above. The elders exchanged worried glances, their calm demeanor cracking for the first time. The leader turned to Liam, her expression filled with urgency. She pointed to the crystal once more and then to him, as if trying to convey something of vital importance. What is it? Liam asked, his voice rising with panic. What are you trying to tell me? The elder stepped forward, his gaze intense. The crystal. It is power. It connects worlds. It can stop the war. But only you can use it. Liam blinked in disbelief. What? Why me? The elder's eyes burned with intensity as he spoke. Because you are human. Liam's mind spun with the weight of the elder's words. He was human, one of the very species responsible for the destruction and chaos that had scared this planet. And now, the same species was on its way back, ready to start another war. The crystal held the power to stop it all, but for some reason, it had to be him. Only him, who could wield its power. The chamber fell into an eerie silence as Liam grappled with his new reality. The fate of this world, maybe even more, was in his hands. I don't understand, Liam said, his voice shaking. Why can't you use it? You live here. You know this place better than I do. I'm nobody. The elder shook his head, frustration evident in his eyes. The crystal, it only responds to human touch. It was created, long ago, by your ancestors. Liam's breath caught in his throat. My ancestors? You mean humans built this? The elder nodded solemnly. Long before they left. But the crystal, its power, it is unstable. It can bring peace or destruction. Liam stared at the crystal, its eerie glow reflecting off the chamber's walls. His stomach twisted with dread. He had no idea how to use it, no idea what it would do. But he knew one thing: if the humans were coming, and if they were anything like the ones who had come before, they wouldn't be coming in peace. Okay, Liam said, his voice steadier now. If this crystal can stop the war, I'll try. But I need to know how. Can't just touch it and hope for the best. The elder stepped closer, his face inches from Liam's. You must learn, quickly. They are coming. Deafening roar filled the air, and the ground trembled beneath them once again. This time, it wasn't just a tremor. It was something much worse. Liam looked up, and his blood ran cold. The sky above the clearing was darkening, not from clouds, but from the unmistakable shapes of massive human warships descending toward the planet. They're here, he whispered. The leader grabbed Liam's arm, pulling him toward the crystal with urgency. The time for explanations was over. The war had already begun. As the alien ships loomed overhead, casting dark shadows across the land, the pressure on Liam mounted. The leader and the elder both stood beside him, eyes locked on the glowing crystal that held the key to peace, or the potential for total annihilation. Liam took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the crystal's surface. The weight of the universe seemed to rest on his shoulders. Would this crystal stop the humans, save this planet, and prevent a war that could destroy them all? Or would it unleash something far worse? He could feel the energy pulsing beneath his fingertips, ready to respond. The choice was his. With one final, resolute breath, Liam pressed his hand firmly against the crystal, praying he had made the right decision. The moment Liam's hand made contact with the crystal, a surge of energy shot through his body, overwhelming every nerve. His vision blurred, and for a split second he felt as if he was everywhere and nowhere all at once. The pulse of the crystal synced with his heartbeat, growing stronger with each passing second. He gasped, feeling the immense weight of its power, its ancient history flowing into him. The elders and the alien leader watched in silent awe as the crystal responded to Liam's touch, its glow intensifying to a blinding brilliance. The air crackled with energy, swirling around him like a storm, and in the distance, the approaching human warships seemed to slow, as if time itself had bent under the crystal's influence. Liam's mind was flooded with visions, flashes of a distant past where humans and aliens had once coexisted on this planet. They had been allies, working together to harness the power of the crystal, a relic from an ancient civilization that had vanished long before either species had evolved. But something had gone wrong. Greed, fear, betrayal. It was unclear exactly what had happened, but the alliance had crumbled, and the crystal had been sealed away, its true purpose forgotten. Now, it was up to Liam to unlock that purpose, but as the images faded, he realized the choice he had to make was far more complex than he'd anticipated. Liam, the leader's voice cut through the haze, sharp and urgent. What do you see? Liam blinked, pulling himself back to the present. The crystal's light still blazed around him, but now it was fluctuating, as if waiting for him to decide its fate. I see everything, Liam whispered, his voice trembling. The past, the future. The crystal can stop the war, but it can also. Before he could finish, the ground shook violently, and a deafening explosion rocked the chamber. Liam stumbled, breaking his connection with the crystal, and for a moment, the light dimmed. They're attacking, one of the elders shouted, his voice tinged with panic. The humans are here. Liam's stomach clenched as the reality of the situation hit him. The human warships had started their assault, raining destruction down on the alien city above. He could hear the distant rumble of buildings collapsing, the shrieks of fear and panic echoing through the temple. The war had begun. The leader grabbed Liam by the shoulders, her piercing green eyes locking onto his. You must choose, Liam. Now. The crystal can either protect us or destroy everything. Liam's mind raced. If he used the crystal's power to stop the human invasion, there was no guarantee it wouldn't wipe out both sides. But if he did nothing, the aliens he had come to know, even in this short time, would be obliterated, and the humans would continue their relentless conquest. I don't want anyone to die, Liam muttered, more to himself than to the leader. There has to be another way. There is no more time, the elder shouted, his voice filled with desperation. Use the crystal, or we are all doomed. Liam's hand hovered over the crystal once more. His mind was a battlefield of conflicting thoughts. Should he trust the crystal's power, or should he try to reason with the humans? Could they even be reasoned with? Or were they too far gone, driven by the same greed and hunger for power that had destroyed the alliance so long ago? He glanced up at the leader and the elders, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and fear. They had placed their faith in him, a stranger from a species they barely understood. And now, their lives, and the future of their world, hung in the balance. Taking a deep breath, Liam made his decision. I'll stop the war, he said, his voice firm. Without hesitation, he pressed his hand against the crystal once again. This time, he didn't fight the surge of energy that coursed through him. Instead, he embraced it, allowing the crystal's power to flow freely. The blinding light exploded from the crystal, spreading out in waves that rippled through the air, through the ground, through the very fabric of reality. Liam could feel the energy expanding, reaching out to the human warships in orbit, to the alien city under siege, to every living thing on the planet. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. And then, with a deafening roar, the light shattered. Liam was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard as the crystal's power erupted in all directions. The entire temple shook, and the ancient walls began to crack and crumble under the force of the explosion. "Liam," the leader shouted, rushing to his side. "What have you done?" Liam struggled to sit up, his vision swimming. The air was thick with dust, and the ground beneath him trembled as if the planet itself was reacting to the crystal's release. I don't know," Liam gasped, his body weak from the strain. "I tried to stop it." The leader helped him to his feet, her expression a mix of anger and concern. "The warships, they've stopped firing." Liam's heart skipped a beat. He turned toward the sky, where the human warships had once loomed, dark and menacing. Now they were frozen in place, their engines flickering as if caught in some kind of stasis. The air was eerily quiet, the sounds of battle replaced by an unnatural stillness. "What's happening?" Liam whispered. The elder, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward, his eyes wide with realization. "The crystal, it has bound them. It has locked the humans, in time." Liam stared at the elder in shock. "You mean, they can't move?" The elder nodded slowly. "The crystal has neutralized them. They are frozen, outside of time. But the power will not last forever." Liam's mind reeled. He had stopped the war, but only temporarily. The humans were locked in stasis, but eventually, they would break free, and when they did, the battle would resume. "We don't have much time," Liam said, turning to the leader. "We need to figure out how to negotiate with them before the crystal's power fades." The leader nodded, her expression grim. "And when the humans awaken, they will come for you, for the one who used the crystal." Liam swallowed hard. He had saved the planet, but the price of that salvation might be his own life. The alien city lay in ruins, but its people had survived. The human warships, still frozen in the sky, served as a constant reminder that the war was far from over. But for now, there was peace, a fragile temporary peace. Liam stood on a hill overlooking the city, the crystal in his hand. It no longer glowed with the same intensity, but its power still thrummed faintly beneath his fingers. The leader stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "What will you do now, Liam?" Liam exhaled slowly, his mind still racing with the enormity of what had just happened. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know that we can't let things go back to the way they were. We need to find a way to make peace with the humans, before it's too late." The leader nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will stand with you. Together, we will build a future where humans and aliens can live in harmony." Liam glanced at the crystal, knowing that its power had come with a heavy cost. But in his heart he believed that peace was possible. Together, they would forge a new path, one where the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. And so, with the dawn of a new era on the horizon, Liam and the alien leader prepared for the greatest challenge of all, the fight for peace.